Hello, it's nice to be here. I'm Dr. Rebecca Reynolds. Welcome to a Reynolds Provisions publication, Understanding Different Cultures. This training was developed in partnership between Reynolds Provisions and the Lutheran Education Association of South Africa. This training will take you through steps to guide your teaching experience, giving you the ability to apply special understanding of each student's individual cultural needs. First, we will read over and explain the learning objectives for this training. Second, we will confirm needed definitions for clear understanding. Then we will guide with examples of influences to culture. Finally, after being introduced to the founding board members of Reynolds Provisions, you will be given several possible ways for assessment on your understanding of this training. Welcome. This training will include examples of cultural influences that teachers can use to gain an understanding of students and families they serve. Before we dive into each cultural influence presented here, you will be introduced to the learning objectives for this training. Then, once you have completed reading and/or listening to this training, you will have a choice to earn a certificate for this training by completing and passing the module assessment and the journal entry. Further directions for how to complete all assignments will be described further in this training. Let's get started. Every good training or educational experience needs learning objectives that align with the material and the assessments to be complete. The learning objectives here define you as student. So, if you were to read this clearly, simply exchange the word student with your name or the word I. For example, the first objective could be read as I will be able to identify cultural influences that impact my classroom. With this as an objective, the student, meaning you, should expect this training to include material about cultural influences that impact your classroom. You can also expect to have an assessment at the end of the training that gives you an opportunity to identify cultural influences. Notice that each objective is written as a statement of fact that students, meaning you, will be able to do something when the training is complete. The wording in objectives is important. As a teacher yourself, think about how you will apply learning objectives into your own classroom. When writing your learning objectives for your lessons, be aware of where your current students are in their development and educational level. We can read learning objective 2 as I will be able to apply cultural understanding in planning and implementing classroom lessons. Finally, we can read the third objective as I will be able to modify my classroom and lessons based on my students' cultural needs. Child development is a dynamic, interactive process. Every child is unique in interacting with the world around them, and what they invoke and receive from others within the environment also shapes how they think, behave, and express themselves. Children have specific inputs from their environment. For that reason, there's a vast array of cultural differences in children's beliefs and behavior. Cultural background gives children a sense of who they are. The unique cultural influences children respond from birth include customs, food, artistic expression, language, religion, and a few other things like traditions. Affect the way they develop emotionally, socially, physically, and linguistically. When a child's self-identity is at odds with the social environment due to cultural differences, it can hinder learning. Culturally competent educators can help children of all cultural backgrounds learn by showing an understanding and acceptance of diverse cultures and how they make each child uniquely valuable. Because the early years of a child's life are very important for later health and development, teachers must become more sensitive to the diverse cultures of the children they teach. The very first exposure any child has to culture is the home of that child. Culture begins from the very beginning, where children's early experiences provides the foundation for education, meaning that culture of all children begin where time is mostly spent and with whom time is mostly spent with, typically in the home. By creating a more inclusive learning environment, teachers expand their responsibility to optimize learning for every student. Because family and cultural differences can greatly influence the learning environment, teachers must take steps to contribute to academic success that includes consideration for those cultural differences. The classroom culture, in many examples, is the second culture experienced by children. Teachers need to acknowledge personal bias and be able to allow an open view to the cultural needs of their students. All of us have known and unknown biases due to our upbringing and culture. Teachers must be able to look at their own biases and strive to remove them when she enters the classroom. First, create a diverse, inclusive environment. Children and parents are sensitive to the learning environment. An example can include classroom decorations. Classroom decorations and messaging must remain culturally diverse to avoid subliminal preferences that could be offensive or present stereotypes of any kind. Ask students and families to contribute to classroom decorations and elements. This can help keep diversity a priority while being respectful and accurate in cultural depictions. Another thing educators can do is to offer diverse readings and lessons. Work on creating a collection of stories and curriculums that include diversity. Offering many perspectives allows students to understand diversity and that achievements are possible for all cultures. When educators lead by example and include student culture into the classroom, educators can teach empathy and tolerance, acknowledging cultural influences, helping to prevent problems that impact academic success and later success. When children are below the age of school entrance, they may have moments of being in the community. A child's first community experiences will depend 100% on the child's home culture. Once any child enters a school for the first time, their culture expands. When a teacher includes home cultural elements their students are familiar with, students will feel more welcomed and valued by their educator. There are many ways this can be accomplished. Parents can be invited into the classroom to participate in specific activities. Posters, books that identify the cultures of students can be accessible for reading and classroom work, just to name a few. Educators can assist in expanding cultural knowledge of their immediate community that build upon classroom cultural knowledge. A community culture includes many aspects. By taking a student on a walk around a school's neighborhood, for example, can lead to a great discussion about the community's culture. Simply asking students about the people they saw, any holiday or cultural decorations that were displayed can lead to a wonderful discussion about community culture. As children age, their world becomes slowly larger in the realm of culture, especially for those who can travel, and even if that travel only includes travel throughout their own community. In each of the four cultures identified in the previous slide, home, classroom, community, and country, differences may be found within the influences listed here. Included next are examples of implementation to the 6 influences listed here. These include language and music, holidays, religion and traditions, climate, food and agriculture, education, training and employment opportunities, healthcare, and medicine. Speaking, writing, and reading. They are all integral parts of everyday life, where language is the primary tool for expression and communication. Language can play a big role in how we and others perceive the world. There are language specialists called linguists who work to discover what words and phrases influence us. There are roughly 7,000 languages worldwide. Although there is a lot in common among languages, each one is very unique, both in structure and the way it reflects the culture of the people who speak it. In your classroom, you may speak the same language as your students. If you concentrate on non-biased observation, you will notice at least one student who uses different terms or even pronunciations of words than yourself. This can be due to their home culture. To be sure, hold a conversation with members of that student's household. While you are conversing, listen for the way each word is pronounced and used. This type of observation can lead you to a fuller understanding of students' language use and needs. Understanding your students' language needs is vital to your students' success in every area of development. Music also has many fun differences with the same and in different cultures. For example, a song known by you as being sung fast can be known by someone else as being sung slowly. Tempo can be changed easily. Music is ever present in the daily life of everyone, making it almost impossible to imagine life without it. Studies show a wide range of situations in which people listen to music while learning, running, exercising, driving, when getting up and going to sleep, during working hours, etc. Music is a social phenomenon that is present everywhere, and it makes a great impact on society. People use music as a symbol and a label of their own values, attitudes, and self-perceptions. Music can have a great influence in areas as expressing emotions, aesthetic enjoyment, entertainment, communication, physiological response, and symbolic representation. The importance of language and music in all cultures is obvious, with little observation. The culture of music can be different for every household as well. This brings a great opportunity to invite students to share their favorite songs, families to share their favorite dances, and at the very end of this presentation are a few links to multicultural music. Feel free to enjoy. Holidays, religion, and traditions, no matter the differences represented in your classroom or your own, should be respected. What exactly is a religious holiday? How are they defined? When you look at your own religious tradition, you may think the answer is pretty straightforward. But when you start to look at traditions other than your own, things become, well, much more complex very quickly. The fact is, even within the same religion, religious holidays are both defined and experienced quite differently by individuals, especially when those individuals can include distinct cultural contexts. Western societies heavily influenced by monastic, Judeo-Christian, Islamic traditions think about religious holidays much differently than Eastern societies heavily influenced by Hinduism, Buddhism, and Confucianism, for example. For most religions, specific holy days are a key aspect of religious practice, belief, and belonging, and an important means by which individuals and their communities reinforce their identities and their relationships with each other, with family and friends across time, space, the deceased, and the divine. Holidays, religion, and traditions are a very close connection with individual identity and self-esteem. This makes it important for many people to have the freedom and support to observe these holidays. These traditions are of central importance to one's self-understanding. This becomes a means of reinforcing one's relational identity, even when far from home, family, and culture. Teachers give understanding to a student's religion will come to discover that students will follow the educator's lead and demonstrate the same understanding to others. This can lead to a more peaceful way of life and questions from students about what the teacher believes. Climate can influence culture in some very intense ways. Nature is like a recipe, with each ingredient needed in just the right measure. The influence of food, climate, and agriculture on culture is a continual cycle of influence that continues to change as the climate changes and as the needs of a local communities change. The relation between food systems and the environment is complex. Environmental inputs such as soil and water quality, weather patterns, and temperature influence food systems through their impact on the production, storage, and transportation of food. This in turn affects localized food environments, the place or places where consumers interact with the food system to buy and consume food, including markets, home kitchens, restaurants, and cafeterias, for example. Each affects both human and environmental health outcomes. Farming and fishing tools, technology, and work habits of a community, well, they will also have an impact on agriculture and in turn the local culture. Also, agriculture and fisheries are highly dependent on the climate. For clinical nutrition to be impactful, it is essential to consider how the broader food system affects diets, nutrition, and health. Many farm transitions are influenced by farm family dynamics, socio-cultural values, land tenure, succession, and community factors, in addition to economic conditions. Going to school fed or going to school hungry will have an influence on students' ability to learn. Climate, food, and agriculture that is available or is not available will impact the ability to reach nutritional needs of students. Just like the classroom being described as its own culture, each workplace also has its own culture. When parents leave for their employment or for the work at home, they enter a culture that will impact the home life of students. Many factors, such as proper nutrition, starting in pregnancy, exposure to toxins or infections, the child's experiences with other people and their community, nurturing and responsive care for the child's body and mind, are key to supporting healthy children. As a village or town of people go about their work, when a culture of learning is taken by each member can continually grow their knowledge and develop new skills. The educational levels and employment of family members will impact the ability of students to learn. For example, if an adult in a student's household is unable to locate work or even to work, the income level may be lower than needed for the family to maintain the needed nutritional levels in the household. Students who struggle with food insecurity will struggle to learn scholastic material. In some cultures, children in these cases will leave school to help provide for their families. Healthcare and medicine are not typically thought about when thinking about cultural influences, but cultures also differ in their styles of communication and the meanings of words and gestures, and even in what can be discussed regarding the body, health, and illness. Health literacy requires communication and mutual understanding between patients and their families and healthcare providers and staff. Healthcare that is available will impact the livelihood and health of all students and students' families. The influence of each student will impact the culture of each classroom. Culture provides meaning from information and provides the purpose by which people come to understand their health status and understand options. Cultural, social, and family influences shape attitudes and beliefs and therefore influence the way health is understood. Some cultures do not seek out medical care. Native language, socioeconomic status, gender, race, and ethnicity are integral to the social cultural landscape of understanding health. Two extreme examples could be that of a tribal community, like those in Australia and Africa. where one or two people are the healer of the tribe, and the large community of a highly populated city where many doctors work together. Understanding where and what is believed and available will help understand more of the culture you teach in. Remember that the wording and objectives and how important it is. By identifying cultural influences that impact the classroom, we will be able to name, understand, and apply new cultural knowledge into every classroom. In the visual here, we can identify the home as the child's first cultural influence, and the classroom possibly being the second. The classroom environment, the exploration into the community, and next into the country are possible next influences for a young child. We went over how each student's home life is not the same, and bringing student family members into the classroom can assist in developing your students' self-esteem. The objective of applying cultural understanding in planning, implementing, and modifying classroom lessons based on students' cultural needs will grab student attention and gain the trust needed for each student to grow their desire to learn. Projects that allow students to explore the relevance of their own culture provides a learning experience for students to learn about each other's cultures. Welcoming different perspectives. Welcoming different perspectives into your classroom will encourage discussions where students can share their own thoughts and opinions. Their thoughts and opinions are influenced by their own cultural experiences. Teachers can use this information to gain an understanding of students and create an environment of open learning. A special thank you to the founding board members who supported the work of Reynolds Provisions at the beginning. Founding board member, secretary, and senior instructional designer and adjunct professor at Concordia University, Chicago, Dr. Helga Hambrock, pictured on the top left, has interests in improving quality education for all and frequently leads global projects. Her motivation and interest of being part of the board for Reynolds Provisions is to strengthen and to support the mission of the organization. Mr. Emmanuel Reynolds, pictured top right, is also a founding board member of Reynolds Provisions as treasurer and support engineer, assisting and supporting each project's electronic hardware. Mr. Reynolds volunteers with main projects, helping with creative thinking in areas of technological safety. He has had many different experiences and roles in technology. His most recent work with Plexus as international technology company, he inspires while building tech hardware that supports the increasing medical needs that involve cyber robotics. Dr. Rebecca Reynolds, also adjunct professor with Concordia University, Chicago, is a founding board member who has many different experiences and roles in education. Dr. Reynolds will at times work with organizations such as Cambridge University and the National Geographic Learning to assist in developing international educational programming. She also develops teacher training tools, training and assisting both special education and general education classroom teachers, providing meaningful experiences in exponentiary learning. Through Reynolds Provisions, we hope to spread the work of social, emotional, sustainability, and ecological education. By ensuring the education of school children, staff, and community in the areas of self-reliance, safety, and environmental independence, together we can be sure that our future generations will not only survive, but they will excel. We aim to provide installation and education in green energy into our planet's schools. We also want to install new safety materials and protocols into our international schools, providing ecological and safety tools to schools who would not typically be able to afford themselves. We also aim to provide teacher education. This teacher education will assist our educators in how to teach our children very specific to social emotional development, environmental safety and support, climate education and support. After the references, you will be able to choose from two options for assessment of this presentation. Option number 1 is to obtain a certificate of completion from Reynolds Provisions. Option number 1 gives directions for payment of $1 for an electronic certification, or a payment of $1 plus shipping cost for a paper certification. Or you can gain assessment of this training without Reynolds Provisions certificate through your school's administrative office. The next 3 slides will guide you in your assessment options. The first 2 slides will give direction on how to obtain the certificate through Reynolds Provisions. The third assessment slide is a guide for administrations who decide that they prefer to give out their own credential for this training. In order to gain a certificate of completion, be sure to complete 2 things and send them both together in one email. The first here is the assessment. You must pass this with at least 90%. Please pay special attention to number 3 in the directions. This is an important step. Feel free to watch this presentation as many times as you need to gain or check for the correct answers. Learning something new takes an average person 7 times of taking in new information. To gain your certificate, please complete the 5 assessment questions and journal entry. Be sure to complete this individually and not with others. Answer each question clearly and fully. Type out each question with the answers and your journal entry on a document, not PDF. Email your assessment to rr@reynoldsprovisions.org. The subject line needs to read "for grading." Each assessment must be passed with at least 90%. If less than 90% is earned, another try is possible. The next slide will explain the journal entry requirement with specific directions. Many people like to sound professional when writing an assignment. However, a journal entry is your personal thoughts and opinions. By writing out your personal thoughts and opinions, you are processing the information gleaned through this training. This is a very important step when learning how to apply new information into the classroom. When writing your journal entry, be aware of the wording that you use. By giving your personal reasons for your statements, simply writing something such as "I agree" or "I disagree" does not explain your personal thoughts or opinions. By applying the 2 items on the left in green, personal opinions based on the topic of this training, and how will you apply what you learned into the classroom? Answer the questions to the right in blue. There is no requirement of word length. However, these are questions that do not really need a lot of words. 1 to 2 pages should provide enough space to fully answer each question. Be sure to email your journal entry with your assessment, questions, and answers. Administration can assess completion and understanding as they wish without obtaining the certificate from Reynolds Provisions. Here in this slide, you will see 2 possible options. Refer to your administration's training requirements before beginning either of these options.